Hello, episode 2 of The Ball Card Show. Glad you're here. I'm Jason.
I'm Gary, and we're excited to be here with you as part of the Press Play Podcast Network. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, right?
Yeah, but the most importantly, you're here.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Because, Gary, that's the only way they could be listening right now.
Yeah, that's true. And for the most part,
that was unnecessary information.
You're here for episode 2 means that likely you listened to episode 1 and
I'm still picking on you.
Didn't hate it. Well, you can pick on me all you want. I don't have to engage it, though, right?
Well, that's because you don't have feelings about anything.
That's true. I'm dead inside.
It's kind of concerning. We're glad you're here. We're glad you're joining us for episode 2. We're glad there is an episode 2.
We weren't horribly concerned that there wouldn't be, but there's always a chance that the network fires you after episode 1. It didn't happen.
You know, they have a pretty serious contract that you sign that seems pretty legally binding.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And we didn't say anything too out of left field.
No.
I mean,
that was a great
Deshaun
sports
Watson
pun.
talk.
Left field?
Yeah.
Think about it. Here we are. So today we want to talk to you about something very specific, something very important if you're going to be a collector, and that is how we collect.
Yeah, where do you find cards? If you don't have like a bunch of shoe boxes full from when you were a kid, you're just getting into the game, where do you find product?
Or if you're coming back and you're like, don't I just go down to the local card shop and take, 50 cents and get a stick of bubble gum with my pack?
Yeah, it's a little different now. There's still local card shops, quite a few really good ones. Usually, unless you live in the middle of North Dakota, there's probably someplace within an hour of you that you can go. Here's the difference. If you're coming back into this and you collected in the 90s or the early 2000s and now you see what's going on and you want to get back in. You used to be able to go buy a box of cards for $50, $100 at the most.
Sounds expensive.
And now if you want a product that's an in-demand product, you're going to spend $800 to $3,000 for a hobby box at the local card shop.
And don't think for a second, just because we're on the other side of the airwaves.
We're dropping $3,000 on hobby boxes.
I know you think we're fancy, as you're listening to our podcast, but
we're not that fancy.
We are not fancy.
Now, do we still buy product? Yes.
Do we overpay for product?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Do we feel a little bit dirty when we're done? Yes.
I don't.
I do, because and here's why. You spend $3,000 on a box of cards. So let's use a really high-end product that is out right now that people have been breaking a lot. And that is NFL Flawless. So 2020 Flawless. It's
beautiful product.
Panini's flagship highest end product that they offer in football every year. Unless they decide to do something like exquisite like they did with basketball last year. I don't think they will. I think there's a chance next year they will.
Spoiler alert. We know everything.
So $3,500 to $4,000 a box. There are 8 to 10 cards in the box.
Total.
Now, the highlight of that is if you hit one of the big cards, $30, $40, $50, $60, $80, $90, $100,000.
Yeah.
There's also the chance that you're going to spend $3,500 to $4,000 on that box and pull $400 worth of cards out of it. And that's when you feel dirty.
Yeah. I guess I have felt dirty before.
Yeah, for sure. You open this and you're so excited, and then you're done. And it's literally like you went to the casino and just took your whole paycheck and put it on black.
But, what sucks is I just watched on YouTube these people just pulling these monsters, and I thought it was a solid investment.
If you're ripping boxes, you're not investing, you're gambling. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just understand what you're getting into. Don't take your mortgage money. Don't take your bill money. Take your play money and have fun. There's nothing wrong with ripping packs. I'll never personally buy a box of Flawless, a case of Flawless, or National Treasures at the price points they're at now. 2 years ago, I would buy an $800 box of National Treasures, a $1,000 box of Flawless. Not today. I'm not spending $3,000 or $4,000 on a single box.
Yeah. So all that to say that buying new sealed fresh wax is a little pricey. The game has changed quite a bit. We're going to dive into several different ways to collect, whether you're somebody that's buying sealed product, You're buying singles. Do you buy raw cards? Do you buy graded cards? How do you avoid getting ripped off? Or, what are some of the hacks to doing really well with that? Buying bulk collections. I mean, it doesn't happen a lot, but when it does, it can be super rewarding. And then we'll mess a little bit with breaks too, which is a huge phenomenon.
Yeah.
Most of you are familiar with it. Most of you have felt dirty from a break, for lack of a better word.
At least when you're getting into a break, you don't feel like you're just sinking crazy amounts of money into something. Breaks, if you're not familiar with what a break is, then you're definitely almost brand new back into the hobby. But we want to tell you what a break is. A break is when a breaker or a card shop has a box or a case of cards, and instead of buying the whole box or the whole case, you buy a specific team, or you buy a random spot, and then you're randomly assigned a team. And then that breaker will, on camera, on Facebook Live or on YouTube Live, will open all that stuff, and you will get all of the cards for the team that you bought or that you got randomly assigned.
All of them, 0 of them, however many come out.
Yeah, however many come out. And depending on the product, some breakers won't even give you the option. So if somebody breaks a case of Donruss, they know that 99.9% of the people who bought into their break have no interest in the vet base. So they won't ship that stuff to you unless you specifically ask for it.
Yeah, so breaks is another way to get in. Some of you may have some hacks around that. Some of you may have some experience hitting big cards. I know there have been times that breaks have been very good to me, and most of the time they're not very good to me. And I get some of my money back or some of my investment back. But you learn how to do your homework, and I want to talk about that here in just a little bit. Before we jump into that, just a reminder to you, as we got this thing up and running, we're on Facebook. We'd love for you to join us. We have a page and a group, The Ball Card Show. Look us up in there. It's a great way to ask questions, engage with the content coming, and you can have a little bit of an impact on what we talk about in the next episode in a section we're calling From the Bleachers.
Absolutely. And the group is a really great way in a safe spot to ask questions. If you're brand new, there's a lot of groups on Facebook, especially, where if you're new and you ask questions that everybody thinks that you should already know the answer to, you will get roasted, and it turns a lot of people off from this hobby. Ask whatever questions you want to ask in our group, as long as they're hobby related. There are going to be people that are willing to answer the questions and help you. Even if it's just trying to figure out values on things, that's okay. Ask away. We'll help as much as we can.
Now, having said that, if you ask repeatedly
the same question
after
we might make fun of you a little
130 point or eBay being explained, you're subject to your own roasting.
bit. That's fair. You might get memed.
I think you maybe over-delivered creating a safe space for card collectors here.
Nah, we'll keep it straight and safe.
But I met you, and you're not very kind.
Well, no, that's not true.
You don't really have feelings. Very sociopathic
I don't have feelings,
tendencies.
but I am kind.
Yeah.
When there's something in it for me.
So we could break that down in a whole nother episode.
That has nothing to do with
But I feel
cards.
like it will be a part of a true crime series somewhere down the road.
So anyway, back to
From the Bleachers. We put out first opportunity for people to ask questions, things they want answered.
So let's start there this week. Let's throw a couple of these questions out, and we'll try to answer them as best we can. If you are listening and you have a better answer than we do, jump on the group and answer it. And let's hear your input too. So first, from Mark Otero, spoiler alert,
That's my
that's
dad.
Jason's dad, is hunting for older error cards before the evolution of chase card and SPs a similar chase?
It's an interesting question.
Yes, and I think that there are some parallels between the current chase for silvers and colors and numbered cards and the older errors. However, I don't think it's a direct correlation. The older error cards had value regardless of whether it was a rookie, whether it was a vet, and it was a perceived scarcity that we came to find out later was really not a scarcity.
What does that mean? Tell the people.
The amount of cards that Topps and Fleer and Donruss actually printed from the late 80s through the late 90s is staggering in its proportions. I hear people complaining that we are in a new junk wax era. Those people couldn't possibly be more wrong. The estimated counts on cards that were produced in that junk wax area are in the billions.
With a B.
Yeah, you have no idea the amount of cases of that product that are just still sitting in warehouses.
Yeah.
And even though there's been a little bit of a renaissance and interest in the stuff, there's just so much of it. So even though those error cards were rarer than the regular stuff, there's just so many of them. And anymore, the collecting world and the investing side of it is all about rookies or higher end autographs and patches of big stars, that nobody's too concerned with the FF Billy Ripken or the reverse negative Juan Gonzalez from 1990 Donruss, which is maybe the most overprinted set in the history of baseball cards. So there's some parallels. There's some people that still collect some of those things. People make up errors that never really existed. There's some people that will claim there's a couple of common error cards because there's a period missing after the INC, after Leaf ink on the back of the card. It's not an error. It's not something anybody seeks out and goes after. Whereas the new stuff is numbered. It's rookie driven. There's a finite amount that can possibly exist, especially when you get into numbered stuff. If it's numbered to 25, there's literally only 25 of that card that exists in the whole world and that will ever exist.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I would say that I like about the error card era would be that when you were chasing that, it was like you were chasing something that you weren't supposed to have.
No, for sure.
So like when we say, and if you don't know what SP, that means short print. So essentially if you're coming back into the hobby, especially when you're buying hobby products, but it can be in retail as well, you'll have certain cards that are numbered, different color variations. You had parallels and inserts back in the day to build out a set. These are less set based and more number based. So a 1 of 10 or a 1 of 5 or the 1 of 1 Holy Grail, right? Print plates, patches, patch autos, rookie patch autos. It can just get so extensive, but you know what you're going to get. You can hop online and see, here's the cards that are supposed to exist. Here's the other thing when you talk about hitting a card then and now. Redemptions could be a whole episode. I hate the concept that someone can sell me a box of cards for over $3,000 and give me the Dumb and Dumber, this is better than money. This is an IOU. No, it's not.
Yeah, well,
it's not
especially because Panini usually runs anywhere from 18 to 36 months on their redemptions. And that's not all Panini's fault. The athletes don't sign things in a timely manner and get it back to them. But still, it is unbelievably frustrating. The only thing more frustrating than getting a redemption is getting points. When you have guaranteed autographs in a box and they present you with 150 Panini points that mean literally nothing, it makes you want to pull your hair out.
When you went to like Chuck E. Cheese as a kid, or you take your kid to Dave & Buster's now, and they count it up, and it's like, I have 700 tickets. Like, yeah, would you like a Tootsie Roll?
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing.
And what do? I get the Tootsie Roll. I'm not going to walk out with nothing.
Right, but you don't.
If I have 1,500, just 2 Tootsie Rolls. Somewhere I get other stuff, but I still get the candy. But that's not the point here. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is what can exist in the hobby with the SPs, with the number stuff. Now, the trade-off of the hunt and having something you're not supposed to is these SPs can be really valuable.
Oh, yeah. No,
a lot more than those high-print
and
error
there's
cards.
There's a lot of homage paid. I know last year, Top Series
Sorry, how did you say that?
Homage. You like that?
Yeah, but I heard a homage.
Yeah, I gave it a little
Extra?
flourish. Yeah,
Laymaster.
In any event, the Top Series 1 last year did a reverse negative short print, and it was actually an SSP, a super short print of Mike Trout. It was kind of a throwback to that Juan Gonzalez reverse negative that was an accident. Topps did it on purpose.
Right.
So hopefully that answered that question for you, Mark. Next question from Brennan Sims from Facebook. I consider the T206 Honus Wagner the holy grail of baseball cards. What card do you guys consider the holy grail?
The answer to your question is yes.
I think it really depends on the person and what they collect. In general, I think there were a few cards that are considered grail cards that kind of Mount Rushmore. The Honus Wagner that Brennan was talking about, the 52 Bowman, Mickey Mantle. I think the 86 Fleer, Michael Jordan, 2000 Bowman Chrome, Tom Brady, or if you really want to get crazy, the 2000 Playoff Contenders autograph Tom Brady.
It's all right.
That card specifically, same thing with the 86 Jordan, even in mid and low grades, they're so crazy priced.
I throw LeBron in there only because of his age and when it hit this market boom.
Yeah.
Because he's the nostalgic kind of child. Like if somebody's in their 20s right now, early 20s, LeBron was their Michael.
No, that's true. I think the thing to keep in mind when it comes to LeBron, though, and grail status with cards is that LeBron 2003, 2004 NBA cards, that was the first set since 92, 93 with Shaq, where the card manufacturers realized that they had a prospect that was as close to a true, absolute can't-miss, long-term Hall of Famer unless something gets broken that's irreplaceable or not fixable. So a lot of that product was made. And even though the Bowman Chrome and the Topps Chrome LeBron rookies in a PSA 10 are in that $14,000 to $16,000 range, if you want one, you don't have to look very hard to find one.
Sure.
They're out there. You just got to write the check. When I think about grail cards, I think about cards that are hard to find. So if you're talking about LeBron, we're talking about his exquisite RPAs.
Oh, those are nasty.
We're talking about the numbered stuff out of high-end products because it's just not out there. If I want one of those cards, I have to go digging. I have to go searching, and then I have to have $4 or $5 million. So when it comes to grail cards, there's a very short list of things that, in my opinion, fall into that category. They're your all-time Hall of Famers, and then when you get into the modern and ultra-modern stuff, it's going to be numbered versions of those cards. Tom Brady is a perfect example of a card that was not short-printed. Here's the reason that Tom Brady stuff is rare. He was a 6th-round draft pick, and nobody put his cards in penny sleeves. A lot of people threw him away with commons because he was a nobody. And the fact that that occurred means that there were so far fewer gradable cards of his that the population counts are low.
Sure.
Not because there weren't more made,
Yeah.
but because a lot of them are in landfills.
Yeah, and I think the bigger part of the conversation with the Holy Grail, which that's a few different ones. There's the conversation of value, long-term hold, rarity. Is this going to be a retirement fund type of thing? Or is this just nostalgic for you? And who's the one player you always... So for me, like, even though there are harder cards to find, it's probably going to be that Jordan rookie. If I can get that Jordan rookie dimed out, I'm set. Not a lot of dimes out there.
No, it's $1 million card.
But for
We're
me,
close
that
to
would be it. But, man, Honus Wagner, you start getting into some vintage.
Yeah, you get into like a T206 Honus Wagner, you just can't find it. And the people who have that card, people who have I think there are 3 PSA 10 52 Bowman Mickey Mantles in existence. There's 8 or 9 9s, maybe a few more than that. And then there's lower grade stuff. But the people who have those cards are rich. And they're not just rich, they're wealthy. So why do they want to sell it?
Right.
Even if I want it and I have $5 million to spend on it, what is going to make that person decide to sell it to me? They don't need the money. They've got this piece of, ephemera that has massive social value and collectible value. So getting a hold of that is impossible. Whereas if I want an 03 Topps Chrome LeBron, I can hop on eBay right now and buy one.
Just saying, like, my birthday's in October.
We need a lot more sponsors before I can buy that for you.
Yeah, maybe they could buy it for me.
Everybody out there, let's crowdfund Jason a LeBron rookie. All
Come
right,
on,
so
guys, it's important. It's a good cause.
there's From the Bleachers for this episode. Jump on the Facebook group if you have questions that you'd like us to answer, and we will try to get to those when we can in episodes. What's up next?
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. We read one book a month and then we talk about it. Books like Stephen King's The Shining or Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. If you're on the hunt for book recommendations and enjoy sparkling conversation, come read along with us and then listen in.
Hey, it's JD from the Hyman Podcast. I created this podcast to have hard conversations. Conversations that make us human but are also wildly uncomfortable. Conversations that help give voice to the voiceless and to the marginalized. Now you can listen to the entire first season on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Consider this your personal invitation to join the conversation.
For the Dennis Maniloff Show, I'll tap into my 40-plus years of following Cleveland sports and 30-plus years of writing and talking about them, so as to bring you informed opinions and analysis of your favorite players and teams. I also will monitor the national sports scene and, when warranted, step out of the toy department and into the real world. And I'll always be on the lookout for special guests. By all means, join us.
All right, we're back, and it's time to jump into the ins and the outs of collecting, sourcing, finding the cars that you want to build your collection with, flip for some profit, hang on to, or just gamble for.
All right.
Whatever you're into.
So let's talk about the main ways you can get cards into your collection. You can buy sealed wax. You can buy singles, which are going to come raw or graded. You can try to purchase bulk collections. And that's your three main routes. Now, they all break down in a little bit different ways. If you're buying sealed wax, you can look for hobby or you can look for retail. Good luck finding retail, at least at retail prices.
And that's where breaks come in on that as well.
Yeah, for sure. And to be frank, a lot of breakers are breaking retail product now instead of hobby product because it's so expensive. Even if it breaks, it's hard to fill. A case, and if you're just breaking a single box of hobby, a lot of people are going to get skunked, and then you're going to burn your room.
Yeah, so let's go in a little bit on numbers with that. Maybe give a couple examples of different products people might break that are like common ones. Obviously, the market's moving.
Sure.
It's a little bit different now than it even was a couple months ago. But what kind of money are people spending on breaks? What opportunity does it give them?
Yeah, I think it depends on the product. Obviously, product ranges from really low-end stuff. And when we talk about low-end products for Panini, Panini tends to have the same product name for different sports. So we'll talk about their lower-end products. Any draft products are considered lower-end, even if they're expensive, because the minute that professional uniform stuff comes out, they're not as relevant. They don't hold their value well. Then you get into products like Legacy for football, or Donruss, or Chronicles. Those would be the lower end products. If you're buying into hobby breaks of those things, especially things like Chronicles, Donruss is a little different because there's more cards in a box. Chronicles, I wouldn't buy into any single box hobby breaks. I would buy into case breaks. And if you're buying into case breaks and it's a pick your team, then that means you get to choose your team.
And you pay accordingly.
Yes, you pay
based off the
accordingly. If it's
checklist.
football and you want the Chargers, you're going to pay more than anybody else because Justin Herbert's the hottest thing out there. But in a case of that, you're going to pay anywhere from, Chronicles, I've seen the lower end teams anywhere from $50 to $60 for the whole case to you're upwards of $1,000, $1,200, $1,300 if you want the Chargers.
Yeah.
If you get into really big stuff, you get into Flawless, you get into National Treasures, you might spend $3,000 or $4,000 for one of the big teams in a whole case.
Right.
And you can get a lower end team for $300 or $400. The nice thing about the big products is that even on lower end teams, there's still some good stuff to be had. a friend of Jason's who's a big breaker, who hopefully we'll have as a guest one of these times real soon.
Maybe even a sponsor.
Yeah, he Ultimate Box Breaks, correct? Yeah. And
He hasn't paid us yet.
Well, that's okay. We'll throw it out there. So Brian pulled in National Treasures, right? Was it that Brady was out of?
Yeah.
So the Patriots were going for $400 to $600 in a full case of National Treasures for most places if it was a PYT. And Brian pulled for somebody, I don't know who the guy was, but the guy paid his mortgage for the next 5 years, pulled one Super Bowl patch auto for Tom Brady. It's $50,000-$60,000 card.
MVP.
Yeah, it's a $50,000-$60,000 card that the guy got for $400 or $500 in all likelihood.
And that was a random.
Oh, it was a random, so it was even less.
Yeah.
So when we talk about breaks again, pick your team, and then there's random. If it's NFL, there's 32 teams in the NFL. They'll take the price of the case, divide it by 32. Everybody pays the same amount, and they run a randomizer, and you get whatever team you get.
Yeah. And not to be like giving too much advice on this, because just collect what you like. But when you're looking at the price of your stuff, think ahead of time what you're chasing.
Oh, for
What
sure.
What are you wanting? Sometimes we get bored because we don't see anything in the stores or see anything at the
Yes.
LCS. You're like, I'm going to do a break. And you hop into a product where if you're not going to be buying in on a PYT, pick your team for one of those higher end teams or a higher prospect team.
Yeah, the checklist is
If
trash.
you hit the best card for that mid-tier team you selected, how much money are you losing? Sometimes you don't need to do the math on that.
Right,
Because
exactly.
you're just wanting to gamble or wanting to
Yeah.
see the new product open or get something.
And shop around. Listen, the thing about breaking and the internet is that it has allowed a lot of people who don't really know what they're doing to start trying to make money from this hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And you can always tell the greedy guys. PYT breaks are great. However, do yourself a favor and take 5 minutes and grab a calculator and add up the total amount that breaker is pulling from that entire break. And then go look and see what a case of that product costs on eBay. And then decide whether you feel like paying that breaker a 50% margin,
Yeah.
which is crazyville.
Yeah.
Some guys are doing that. And it's in my opinion, going to really turn a lot of people off from the hobby.
And like this is the point where some breakers listening in, you're like, man, come on, don't be like, it's hard to get stuff. That's the flip side too. Is sourcing can be quite the challenge.
It can be. Here's the issue though. I have no problem with somebody making profit. Profit's fine. I don't have an issue with profit. You've got $10,000 in a case of National Treasures you had to buy on the secondary market. Cool. And your break comes in at 11.5. You made $1,500 for an hour of your time. I have no problem with that. But there are guys out there breaking National Treasures at 16 grand. That's crazy talk.
I mean, but people are paying for it.
Only because they're not taking the time to add things up.
You think?
I think so, because
I disagree.
When's the last time you saw a random spot come in that heavy? It's always PYT.
Right. Yeah. No, I hear you. I think that people are far more selfish than that, and they're saying, well, I'm only paying $500 for this team. You see what I'm saying?
Maybe, but I guess my only response to that would be shop around.
Yeah, I think that's healthy.
Because why pay $500 when you can pay $350 for the exact same thing?
I'll just say it like this. I mean, anybody can have their buddies over and play poker, but it doesn't get the endorphins going like walking in the casino and hearing clink, 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 clink. It's just it's the ambiance, man.
How is that?
I want to be
again?
there. Clink, 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 clink. That's just me just tearing up the slot machine.
Can we cut that, producer Dave? Can we
Clink,
just
clink,
like
clink, 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 clink.
get that as a sound effect?
I'm just saying, like, some of it's the experience. Some of it's that you're breaking a product with people that you know. Some of it is a community there. But, yeah, you can get ripped off. You can get ripped off, absolutely. For me, if I'm chasing after a card and it's at a product I can't get and I have a chance to pick the team that has somebody I'm chasing, I could still lose a lot of money.
Yes.
But that's a break where I may care less about the breaker's margins and more about, oh, sweet, did I get the team I want?
That happened to me in a flawless case 2 years ago, basketball, NBA. And this tells you how far things have gone. The two hottest teams in breaks that year were the Hawks and the Mavs, because it was Trae Young and Luka Doncic's rookie year. And I paid $500 for the Hawks, which was, I felt like I was doing something wrong. But nobody had pulled the one-of-one logo man yet. and the Trae Young stuff that was coming out was selling for, at the time, 5, 6, 7 times what I was buying in for. So it was like, okay, I'm going to take this shot. And I completely skunked. And it was awful. And it was a reputable breaker, great company. And they're still doing their thing, and they were great. They even hooked me up with a few free things because I think they felt bad that
That's great.
I got
some
skunked.
Tops bunt.
No, there was no Tops bunt. Let's not get into NFTs. I don't want to play the NFT game. It's not a game I want to play. I don't think anybody wants to hear us talk about it. So anyway, that's breaking in a nutshell.
So let's talk about sealed wax. So we have like the modern stuff, the retail, the hobby. We also have vintage stuff. And I think there's an interesting thing happening where people were just flipping that junk wax era stuff like crazy over the last year. Yeah, it's still happening. People are a little scared because there seems to be a little bit of a dip in the market or correction, whatever you want to call it. But there are some still very easy ways to get a hold of sealed product. Vintage stuff. I mean, the lucky find is when you go to the yard sale and they don't have anything out, and then you ask, and they're like, "Oh yeah, my son went off to college and left him here," and it's all like early 2000s stuff.
Yeah, and you get super excited. The worst part about those is you go to a yard sale and you see some stuff sitting, and you walk over excited, but they obviously have done their research, and it's all priced to market, and then you're just like, well, never mind.
What's the point?
So when it comes to finding product, modern stuff that's, the last year or two, you got a couple of options. You got your LCS, where you're going to buy hobby and some retail, but you're not going to pay retail prices for the retail. Then you also have your major retail stores, Walmart and Target. Target suspended all in-store sales, although they're discussing how to roll that back out. Everything is now done online. They tend to drop that stuff, just everybody a heads up, on Wednesday mornings at 7 a.m. and on Friday mornings at 7 a.m. Target's website is a nightmare to navigate, so I would highly suggest going and figuring out where those pages are and bookmarking them, and then just setting your alarm for Wednesdays and Fridays, and you can buy retail stuff at retail price if you're fast. Walmart,
it's becoming like a sneaker drop at this point.
A little bit, yeah. Walmart still carries stuff in stores, but you have to either get lucky and show up when the vendor shows up, or you do what some of these guys do, and you just go to Walmart every day at 7 a.m. and you sit there until 5 p.m. every single day, and you hope for the best. And when you do see that vendor come in, you knock everybody else out of the way, you take all the stuff, and you sell it for 7 times what you paid for it. And that's where we're at. The nice thing about the flipper side of things with retail right now is that market is starting to slowly come down because people are starting to realize that it's silly to pay hobby box prices for retail product because you can't get the same things in the retail product.
Yeah, I'd say just even in the last month, I'm beginning to occasionally see some retail in, some stuff that I'll get into, which like it's not super high end, but I don't ever pass up Bowman baseball whenever I see it.
Love it so
Anytime,
much.
I mean, you got a chance of pulling a first you don't even know about, and 5 years from now, it's a monster.
Well, that's why Bowman's so great. Like, you buy Bowman, you rip it, it's a blast because you're ripping stuff, and you're going to find some people that you've heard of, and you're like, sweet, I can flip that right now. And the rest of it goes in a box.
Into the trash.
Well, no, the rookies and the first all go into a box, and every baseball season you get that stuff back out, and you go through it, and it's like a treasure hunt. You're like, oh, I have 6 Fernando Tatis firsts that were worth $2, and now they're worth $60 each raw.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's great about Bowman.
Yeah, it's starting to see it a little bit. It's popping in. I think stores are starting to quicken up a little bit too to kind of slowly release that, whether they say they're stocking it all at once or not. Just the fact that I'm finding stuff mid or later in the day makes me believe that it's being stocked throughout the day a little bit at a time in some places. But retail is still a great opportunity to get in on products. So let's just real quickly pick 2 of your top products that you can get at retail.
For retail?
Yeah. Best value.
The best value, well, first and foremost, like you just said, I love Bowman. I love Bowman. Bowman. Not Bowman Chrome. Bowman Chrome's fine. It's a separate product. Bowman, just so everybody knows, Bowman releases 3 products a year. You have Bowman, which has the chrome inserts. That will be where you'll find your first chromes. Then Bowman Chrome drops later in the summer. It doesn't have any firsts in it at all. It'll be second runs for all the guys that were in the first. So last year, Jason Dominguez and Bobby Witt Jr. were in Bowman. Their first were, and then they were in Bowman Chrome, but they didn't have the first symbol on them. And then at the end of the year, after the MLB draft, Bowman drops Bowman Draft, which will have a lot of guys' firsts in it. And then you get stuck the next year and you don't see him. Spencer Torkelson, number 1 pick last year. His first was in Bowman Draft of last year. All his stuff in this year's Bowman is not a first. Yeah. Doesn't mean it has no value, but it doesn't have anywhere near. He will have to become a monster for the second print stuff to have much value. So that is a product that I like a lot. Another product that I really, really love on the retail side of things, if you can find it, and for the value of what it is, I think it's awesome, is Donruss. Licensed Donruss, not Donruss baseball, but Donruss basketball, Donruss football. Those products at retail have parallels that are colored parallels. They're paper. Walmart, I believe, is blue. Target will be red. Dollar General, Dollar Tree is yellow. They're pretty rare. They're pretty short printed, especially the rookies. And it's a fun product to rip, and those variations hold a lot of value. And if you can get it at retail, you're doing awesome.
Yeah. So I'll jump in with the obvious one. I would say unlicensed Prism. I don't think you're going to deny that that's an incredible product.
No, you just can't find it.
You just can't find it. But, I mean, it's interesting even what's happened in the market. You know, you had 2020 football became super accessible and just stuck around on the shelves, and then it disappeared overnight. Because people realize, like, Prism's kind of king on the base stuff. Now, interestingly enough, we'll be talking about this down the road. Some things have shifted with collecting and flipping and grading base with this big boom. So there's an interesting conversation there. But when it comes to just the aesthetic, so, like, my wife doesn't collect cards at all. But anytime I have Prism, she likes to open it and then kind of tease me. But she also likes to look for a little bit of color. You know, you get a Prism and you see that shine on the card, like she's like, this is going to be the one. We're going to pay off a car. This is going to be the one. Yeah.
And then it's some like random
Dylan Windler.
Hey, Dylan Windler, if he doesn't get hurt again, is going to be a solid 6 to 8 point a night guy for the Cavs. Okay. Big money.
Yeah. So, you know, with our market, I didn't mean to be so disrespectful, Dylan. You know,
if you're listening, Dylan.
Press Play has a, you know, extensive network in the Cleveland market, and we love Dylan.
And we'd love to have you on the show, Dylan. If you're listening,
come
give us a
join
call.
us, Dylan.
Reach out to the network. We'd love to have you.
But I just was kind of hoping for Ja. I guess would be a better way of saying that when I was going through that.
But Dylan, if you're listening,
but Dylan,
don't take that as a slight.
You're my dude. You're my dude, Dylan. So I would go with Prism, and then I'm gonna just say it. It's just iconic for me. It's not that exciting, but you can always get a few hits in there. Topps Baseball, Series 1, Series 2 update.
Oh, this year's Series 2 checklist is so brutal.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's pretty rough.
It's an awful, awful product. They saved everybody good for update.
Well, yeah, that's true. I also would say, too, about retail and Topps, you always have, like, down the road, previous years that pop up in jumbo packs throughout the year because it's so highly produced.
Yeah.
And they'll throw it up on clearance stuff. I remember, 6 months ago when I pulled a whole rack of 2018 Series 2 and update for like $5 a pack.
And now it's going for $100 a pack.
I had 100 times selling it. I think I did 6 packs for $150.
Yeah, and now that would be about $700.
So we don't need to really talk about the math that much involved there, but those would be a couple for me that, there's products we hate too. For me, anything unlicensed baseball, I personally just can't support it. I can't get behind it.
Prism baseball looks so good though. Like just the aesthetic of the card looks really good. So does Select. But again, the unlicensed side of it, although it's made some strides,
yeah, I think it's accessibility that's driving that a little bit.
I think that, and I think color does too. Like one of the things that Topps doesn't do as well as Panini does is Topps has some color variations, but they don't have a ton, and they're super hard to get a hold of. With Panini, you're going to get some color no matter what you open, and it may not be numbered color, but it's going to be some type of a variation that at least gives you the feeling that you got something super cool.
I'd also say this, the inserts seem kind of cheesy on the Panini baseball stuff compared to the basketball.
Well, in general, a lot of the stuff that Panini does with baseball is a little cheesy, but that's because they're trying to do something so different to get people's imagination captured.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, for me, retail, I'm not super crazy about unlicensed baseball.
Yeah.
Bet you. What do you
That's
hate?
all right.
What do you hate? We've already
As much
expressed
as
your hate
well,
for
I
Leaf
have.
draft.
Here's what I hate in retail. I hate repacks at retail. They are always trash. I mean, the Fairfield repacks are just awful. It's going to be, they're going to tell you that there's 6 random sealed packs and 10 cards, and the 10 cards are all beat to crap and in bad shape, and the 6 packs are 3 packs of Leaf Draft, 3 packs of Leaf whatever, and 1 retail pack from one of the worst possible years of the sport that you can get your hands on. Can you maybe pull something crazy good out of one of those? Maybe. I know Jason pulled a Le'Veon Bell auto rookie out of one of those one time.
That was pretty
which
bizarre.
Is worth about $5 now, but
Sold
at
it
the
for
time,
$30.
yeah, at the time it was solid. But in
Steelers
general,
fans don't usually do that much math.
Well, and he doesn't play for the Steelers.
Well,
so
but at
the
the time,
he
it
did.
was a Steelers
Yeah,
fan.
it was. So any repack products
That was
are
a diss on
retail.
Steelers fans. I just want to make sure that you're able to hear me out there.
I heard
Steelers,
you.
not you. The
Oh,
people.
the Steelers fans that are out there.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So
pierogies are cool, but
repack products not good, and then Leaf retail products.
I really have an issue with the Steelers fans. It boils back to a Monday Night Football game when they decided to double up the sod as a way to deal with flooding on the field.
You're really intent on telling this story.
I am, because Ricky Williams had made his great comeback.
Oh, that's right, because you're a Dolphins
And
fan.
then, was it Joey Porter stomped on him and broke
that
a rib?
sounds like a Joey Porter move. Yeah.
Anything that was already affecting Ricky's lungs only got worse when his rib was broken. So I can't imagine. But ever since that night, it's just tough for me.
Yeah.
But
So-
I'll let you continue. Don't let me get in the way of your
That's
story.
okay. I appreciate it. So any repack products at retail, and then any Leaf retail products, which is weird because Leaf's hobby products, in my opinion, are some of the best looking products on the market. And that includes Flawless. That includes National Treasures. I will put Leaf Trinity football visually up against any product that anybody releases any year. It's an amazing looking product, high quality product. I will put Leaf Pearl up against any product that's ever been made ever. It's just unlicensed. The good news about that is you can get some really cool cards with on-card autos, with sick patches, big names for a fraction of the cost that you would a licensed product. The bad news is unless it's something that you're PCing, don't buy it with the expectation that you're going to get rich off of it.
Yeah. So sealed stuff.
Sealed, Leaf retail products and then repacks. I'm not a fan at retail at all.
When it comes to the older sealed stuff, keep an eye out. Some of the same places that were good to find them back in the day are still the flea market, the yard sale,
flea markets and yard
Facebook
sales.
Marketplace.
Yep.
Sometimes you'll look at something and the images on Facebook Marketplace give you the impression it's all commons, but usually all it's going to cost you is gas to drive out and take a look.
Well, when you're buying collections, there's 2 ways to approach buying collections. And once you've been in this for a little while, you'll start to figure people out. If you're buying collections, you ideally want to buy unsearched old collections. If somebody has the wherewithal to have already searched through it, then it's not worth your time or effort unless you just want a bunch of 1-penny cards that you'll never, ever be able to sell, and they're just going to take up space. Your perfect world is finding somebody who has 8,000 or 10,000 cards that they haven't looked at in 15 years, and they just want to move them. Jason had that happen earlier this year. He called me and said, "Hey, I got an opportunity to do this. How should I bid it? What should I do?" And I said, well, you got to take into account 2 major things. One, you have no idea what the condition of those cards are. So take that into account when you're making an offer. People always want top dollar for something, whether it's worth top dollar or not. And the second thing you got to keep in mind is the amount of time it's going to take you to not only go through it and sort it, but then to figure out how you're going to sell it, any grading costs that are involved. I think the collection that Jason bought that I was referencing, he probably had at least 50 or 60 hours.
Oh,
at least
way more than that.
in just going. So if you value your time at $30 an hour, at a minimum, you got to take $1,500 to $1,800 off of whatever you think the value is. And then you add in grading costs and everything else. Normally, if I think a collection is worth $10,000, I'm going to offer $3,500. And if somebody wants to move it all in one big bulk, that's what they're going to have to do. If you are listening to this podcast and you're in that position and you think your collection is worth $10,000, the only way you're getting $10,000 for it is if you take the time to go through it and you take the time to sort it all out and list it all separately. Then you might get your 10 grand. Otherwise, somebody offers you $3,000, take it.
Yeah.
Be happy.
Yeah. The collection I picked up was about 500,000 cards.
Yeah.
Tons of time to go through that. There were some really cool cards that had potential of being monsters. They just they wouldn't grade out that high.
That's the thing. I mean, they're in boxes. They've been in a box for 15 or 20 years. Not in sleeves, just sitting there getting thrown around.
Having said that, like, don't take this too critically as you're listening. If you have a chance to get a collection, that is perhaps the fastest way to build equity in a way where you can create, and if you're willing to do a little bit of work, you'll generate money to buy other cards you want.
Yeah.
I like to let my hobbies pay for my hobbies.
Absolutely.
And so for a while there, it was record collections. I'd buy record collections. If it was from the right era and decent condition, had a few big records in it, I knew it would at least give me my money back, give me profit, and I'd keep the ones I wanted.
Right.
So there's a way to do it as you're looking through collections now. Buying vintage sealed, there's a few more risks involved with that. Why don't you talk about what can happen?
Yeah, I think defining vintage is really important too. So to me, vintage does not include the junk wax era. The junk wax era, much like with baseball and the steroid era, is its own window. And most people will define the junk wax era, say that 10 times fast, from 1985 to around 1995 to 1996. Maybe a little bit into 97, but not much. That 10 to 12 year window is the junk wax era. People are currently selling product from that era at prices I never thought that stuff would go for, and people are paying for it. There are also a couple of services out there that will not grade, quote unquote, but authenticate that stuff and then wrap it, and it's now sealed and authenticated by a reputable company. The two big ones are BBCE and RVP. Both run by guys who have impeccable reputations in the industry. BBCE is super backed up right now. Steve runs that there in Indiana, and RVP is run by a guy named Kurt Christensen. Awesome dude. Hopefully I can reach out to Kurt. I've known him for a little while. Maybe get him on here to talk about some of that at some point too. And they're not as backed up. They're kind of the new kid on the block when it comes to that product. Then when you talk about actual vintage, you're talking about 1984 and back. If you can find sealed product from that period of time and it's in decent shape, it's worth money. If it's good enough shape to go get it wrapped somewhere, it's worth really big money. And this is stuff that up until 2 or 3 years ago, like I could go buy a 1982 box of Topps football for $1,200 2 years ago. And now if it's wrapped, it's a $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 box, depending on the day. So it's, that era is tough. When you get past the mid 70s, anything 74, 75 or further back, it's almost impossible to find in good shape. And if you do, you're sitting on a gold mine.
Yeah.
So finding that stuff, you're going to find stuff on eBay. You'll find stuff at, almost every flea market you go to, you're going to find at least one booth that has some stuff. Just take the time. Don't just get so excited that you just grab it and stick it in your cart and go pay for it. Jump on eBay, jump on 130 Point, check comps. A lot of flea markets, especially if they're flea markets that are unmanned, where they're just booths, people put stuff out at the highest possible price they think they can get for it. Don't overpay for that stuff. If there is a bubble anywhere in this market right now, I think it's on that stuff. The pricing has gotten a little stupid on some of it. In 1990 Fleer basketball rack boxes that are going for $500 or $600 a piece is insane. It's insane.
Yeah.
So hopefully that answers that a little bit.
Yeah. So let's talk over to let's move over to what we would consider potentially the least risky opportunity, and that's buying singles.
Yeah. If you're buying singles, there's 2 ways to buy singles. You can buy raw or you can buy graded. If you're buying raw, your best bet is to do that in person at card shows, at your local card shop, so you can actually examine the condition of the card. If you don't know what to look for in the condition of a card, then you should only buy graded. If you're not sure how to kind of self-grade a card, pre-grade a card, to know what you're looking for as far as centering goes, as far as corners, edges, surface issues, if you don't know what to look for, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that. You can learn, and there's more profit if you can buy raw and grade yourself. But if you don't know what you're doing, buy graded. Or find a local...
Or if you don't know what you're doing and you care about the investment. Yes. Like if you have somebody that you're collecting as a player and you love it, buy it. Like,
I'm talking about from an investment standpoint.
Yeah. If you're spending money and you don't want to lose money right away.
So to give you an example from some modern stuff, we were talking about breaking earlier. I was in a break this week of Chronicles football, and I got very lucky. Not only did I get the Chargers in a random, but in the break, I got so in this year's Chronicles, there's a new Prism card called Prism Black. So it looks just like this year's Prism, but the background is blacked out. And I got a silver Justin Herbert. The card looks sweet. Raw, it's about $200, maybe a little bit more depending on the day. When I get it in, I'm going to look it over. If it's as clean as it looked in the break, I'm probably going to send it to PSA on Super Express and pay the $300 to get it graded, because if it tens, it's going to be worth $2,200, $2,300. Easy. That's it. And if it doesn't, if it nines, it's going to be worth $5. So I'm not out.
Yeah.
I was only into the break for $20. So I'm coming out ahead either way. If you are looking to invest in things, though, you either need to know what you're looking at raw or just buy graded. eBay is a great place to buy graded. If you're buying raw on eBay, this is a pet peeve of mine. And this is something that as a buyer, if you're the guy who asks 30 questions and wants pictures from every angle, and you want, a 30x scope picture of every corner, and it's a $12 card, I want you to go find a cliff and walk off of it. Okay? You're the worst person on eBay. Those people drive me insane. If you're buying a raw card on eBay, plan on it being a 7.
Yeah.
And if it's better, cool.
Yeah.
But and then when you return it, I have your address. I want to drive to your house and punch you in the face. I'm not going to, but I want to.
Let me pause it there and back up just a tiny bit. A lot of friends of mine that have started collecting again or getting into it will buy raw cards. And when they think of grading, they're thinking of like, if they ask a girl to rate them 1 to 10, like if a dude gets a 6 or 7, they're pumped.
Yeah.
A 7 raw, unless it's vintage, is a bad score.
Yeah.
You really didn't help yourself on value.
No, at the most, you are even.
Right.
At the most, you are even with a raw score. There are some exceptions to that, but they're not big exceptions. They're not the norm. The exceptions to that are like numbered Tom Brady rookies. I had a numbered score Tom Brady rookie that got a 7.5, and it sold for about a 35% premium over raw. So, but that's not the norm. If you get a 7, you didn't do well.
Yeah, if you see like a corner that's bashed, that doesn't make it 75% of a 10.
No, exactly. If you, and so that's the point. And so if you're buying raw cards off of eBay or off of Facebook, if that's what you're doing, there's nothing wrong with that. But don't be the guy who expects every card to be a perfect gem mint 10, and if it's not, you're going to throw a fit and return it. Yeah. Like, you're the worst part of the hobby, if that's you.
And it sounds like eBay's beginning to do some things to try to address it. Like, it's at least movement from the last couple of years, but at the end of the day, if you're selling on eBay, you're at the mercy of the buyer. It's still structured in a way where it doesn't matter. And it's not just cards, but cards seem to be one specifically where people even have an opportunity, if it's a high-end card, to essentially get a rush on a grade and still be within the window to return it.
Well, yeah, the thing with eBay and cards, and this is why it's been so bad during this boom, is an NBA card saw it the worst because they have the most volatility. somebody would go buy a card on eBay for $1,500, right? And that they bought the card, it was $1,500, and they bought it because the guy scored 42 points the night before, and they were like, oh, I need to buy this card. And then over the next week, the guy puts up a 12-point average, and the card value goes down to $900.
Yep.
They return it.
Yeah.
Well, eBay's going to make you accept that return. I don't care whether you have no returns checked. It doesn't matter. They're making you accept that return, and you're SOL. And the worst part about it is the customer who bought the card doesn't even have to send you the card back. They can send you an envelope with a piece of paper in it. And as long as it shows that it was delivered to your address, you're toast.
Yep.
That's it. So you got to be careful when you're selling on eBay. And if you're buying on eBay, don't be that guy.
And I see a temptation with a lot of new collectors too. They'll think of, like, especially ones like my age and older that have been working a little while. They've got a little bit of hobby money. They'll go find somebody that's a GOAT or someone that's great, and they'll get a lot of low-end raw rookie stuff.
Yeah.
And if it's at a card show with somebody that's selling a lot of slab stuff, chances are they know that that's not something to grade.
Yeah.
And that can be okay. But if you're looking at an investment game on a card that's 25 years old, like, that's already a long play. How much movement are you expecting?
Well, if you're buying raw with the intent of grading, then you need to know what you're doing. If you're buying raw with the intent of putting it in a penny sleeve and a top loader and sticking it in your collection and being able to pull out and look at it every once in a while, nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. But like Jason said, if you go to, or even on eBay, if I go to eBay, before I buy anything from somebody, I go look at the rest of their listings. If they've got 30 graded cards up for every raw card they have up, I know for a fact that raw card's not going to gem. It's just not, because they would have sent it in to get it graded if it was. They're selling it raw for a reason.
So an improvement from eBay at some points can be buying singles raw and ungraded, and raw and ungraded, because they're the same thing. Raw and graded, was what I'm trying to say, is on the Facebook group. So Facebook's super active in the card market. You have a little bit of accountability sometimes because pages are being monitored. You have admin that are keeping an eye on things. There's group rules.
Pay goods and services always, unless it's somebody you know and have done business with.
Yep, for sure. So there's opportunities there to get a little bit of a closer look. If you're asking for a couple extra pictures, it's not like that rude or much of an imposition. You probably get a response if somebody's like, look, it's probably not gonna, if you're looking for a card to 10 out, which I'll tell people that sometimes. Be like, it looks like it's a little bit off center. Be like, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And the price reflects.
Yeah.
You know, I just make a point of saying, like, that's in the ballpark of the comps. I'm not reaching here.
And the other thing you can do with that you need to understand with buying on Facebook is, unless you are in some of the really big invite only groups, how do I phrase this the right way? And I'm including myself in this, and Jason will tell you that this is true about me. People who are buying on Facebook are cheap asses. For the most part.
Yeah.
And I'm one of them.
You're the chiefest of sinners.
I'm looking to buy stuff on Facebook, not for my personal collection. I'm buying it with the sole purpose of flipping it. So I'm not going to pay you full comps. Now, are there people who will? Maybe. But most people buying on eBay or on Facebook are not.
You get gutsy with it too, because you'll be like, hi, I'm here to pay you 60% of comps.
Yes.
What do you have?
Yeah, and if you have a big chunk of stuff you want to move fast, I'm a great resource for that, because I will
And
buy
then you
50,
offer
60% of comps. Yeah.
See, he already started 50
Absolutely.
60. It gets 40 to 50 by the time you load up the cart.
When it's base mid-range rookies, I'm usually 35 to 40% because I'm gambling. I'm 100% gambling. I'm going to buy them at 40%, and I'm going to try to sell them at 70%.
He says 40%. He's saying 40% of actual comps. What things are selling for that day in the last few sales?
Yep.
So he's literally telling someone, I'm less of a hassle. Let me take it off your hands for half the money.
Yeah. You don't
and
have any
people
eBay
do
fees.
it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think that's part of that is where the gambling component comes in. People would rather do a break than sit on those $500 worth of cards they don't care about. So $250 on breaks is what they want to do with their weekend.
And I'll help them do that every time.
Which, by the way, $250 could be nothing for some of these guys. We'll talk about it more. There's a whole dark side with this where there are people losing their families, losing their homes,
losing their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like anything else. it can become addictive to the point where it's unhealthy. And if you find yourself in that position, this is a hobby you don't want to be in. If you have that type of personality, it can get ugly pretty fast.
Yeah. And Gary would be willing to get you out of your troubles for about 25%.
I'll get you out of the hobby. Absolutely. Two other things real quick that I'll mention about places to buy cards. And then we'll move on and probably wrap this episode up pretty quick. Two places. First one is about a year and a half old. They are going to run you a little bit more than eBay will, but you know what you're getting. It's a website called StarStock. StarStock is rookies and sealed wax only. And they just started doing some vintage stuff. The vintage stuff is only slabs. Here's the cool thing about StarStock is it is a real-time trading platform. So I can send in a box of my ultra-modern rookies. It'll take them right now. They're running about 8 to 10 weeks, but they'll load that all into the system under my account. And once it's in there, I set prices and people can buy and sell, and somebody buys something off of me and it automatically moves to their account. They can choose to have it shipped to them or not. Stays in a secured vault. I believe their vault is in New Hampshire.
New Connecticut?
It's New Connecticut. It's the 51st state.
Yeah.
I think it's
Fallout
either
5.
it's in Connecticut or New Hampshire.
New Connecticut.
So StarStock is a really cool thing, and the reason that they have gained traction is when they receive raw cards. So I send a box, you send a box. They soft grade them. So they have StarStock A, which in their opinion is a PSA 9 or 10 if it's sent into grade, and they've actually sent in large quantities of these things, and they're 9 or 10ing at like a 93 or 94% rate. So it's pretty solid. StarStock B is going to fall in that 7 to 8 range. And then a StarStock C is basically a turd. StarStock C's are like penny stocks. If you have a Patrick Mahomes Prism rookie that would be a StarStock C, it's still a $300 or $400 card
Right.
raw. So there's potential there. The other place that is a really great seller and buyer platform is myslabs.com. If you guys are listening, we need sponsors. Pay us.
What up, my slabs?
My Slabs is really cool because they have it's a small community, but it's an active community. And their seller fees are like 1.5%. Mm-hmm. eBay, you're going to be about 13 by the time it's all said and done. They also vet everyone that's selling on the platform. You have to fill out some paperwork. You have to provide your eBay username and so that they can see what your ratings are there. So there's some quality assurance on sellers there. And you can get some really good deals when somebody doesn't have to pay that extra 12% that eBay is going to take. They price things more aggressively. So those are two resources that are great for singles, raw or slabbed.
So hopefully this episode has been helpful in just thinking through your game plan for how you'll collect, source, find stuff to keep, find stuff to flip. And as always, there's a million other ways to do this. We'd love to hear from you on our Facebook group, The Ball Card Show. Like our page. If you have a second and you're listening to one of our episodes, listening now, take a second to leave us a review. Hopefully it's
awesome.
a good one.
Yeah, and if it's a bad one, we'll take that too. Reviews.
Well, I mean, maybe keep it to yourself.
Well,
If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything
see,
at all.
Jason has feelings and I don't. So if you're going to make fun of somebody or say bad things, say them about me. Say nice things about
Oh.
Jason.
Gary, we both know
That
you
I
can be
don't
a wee
care
bit
at all.
sensitive at times.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. We appreciate it. Next episode, we're going to introduce a new segment called Pop or Drop, where we talk about players and cards that you should either be looking to invest in or to sell or to stay away from at this point.
Hope that you have a great week and can't wait to see you again on the Ball Card Show.
Thanks, guys.